All right, good morning, everyone. We are going to kick off media availabilities today at Atlanta Motor Speedway with driver of the number 7 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet, Corey LaJoie. If you have a question for Corey, please raise your hand and we will get a wireless microphone over to you. We'll start right up here with John.
John Newby, NBC Sports. So obviously when you have, one young teammate and then another de facto young teammate coming in, I was curious, apart from winning and, sponsorships, all that stuff, what are you as a veteran kind of looking for? What factors do you want them to bring to the team?
I think for us is a consistent feedback in those two cars where it's really been a one-car team, more or less, kind of functioning as a two-car operation the last couple of years with some part-time guys. And, there was some crew chief turnover throughout the course of the year last year on the 77, so I didn't think Ty got a great shot at it. But there was just a lot of inconsistency with the other cars, so just getting a little bit of consistency there. Carson's been doing the majority of the sim hours for us, validating tires and things like that. So that allows me to be at home a little more with the kids, and then when I can go on Thursday evenings, for 2.5 hours, I can really plug in and focus and try to get our stuff fine-tuned for the weekend. So, bless you. So, I think for us, just consistency in the 77, consistency in the 71 will help the baseline of our team collectively, which is something we've had a hard time with the last couple of years.
And then are there things that, you can teach them that they may not necessarily think of at, when they're coming into Cup Series initially, whether it be just pit stall entry, things along those lines?
Those guys are pros, man. Those guys are championship guys in the Truck Series, and I don't have the credentials next to my name statistically for those guys to probably want to listen to what I have to say. But I've been doing this for a long time, and they've asked some good questions. But at the end of the day, too, it's just like when your dad tells you to do something, you're not going to listen until you actually figure out to not do it yourself. But those guys have a lot of good people in their corner, whether it's Josh Wise and Scott Speed and everybody from GM to help just prepare those guys for Sundays, because it is a large learning curve, and we're getting the better parts and pieces and people to compete on Sundays as well. So the learning curve is much steeper if your cars aren't fast. So if we bring fast cars to the racetrack, that learning curve flattens out a little bit, and I think those guys can succeed.
All right, we'll go to Jacob and then Lee.
Jacob Stillman, Raceface Digital. Corey, I know the last couple of years you've had a lot of confidence at draft-style tracks. Does the near win, the run that you had here last year, give you an extra sense of, hey, we can really go out and do something this weekend just from the knowledge of you were right there last summer?
I have a lot of confidence every week. It just drafting tracks isn't such of a handicap for what I've had to drive the last couple of years. But after the reconfiguration here, we've obviously run well. Talladega and Daytona is somewhere you can play chess with a little bit slower horse and take advantage of some guys that might get too greedy or something like that. Where those were my only opportunity to succeed. Now, we're going to succeed on short tracks, intermediates, and road courses as well. But going in here, you don't want to circle a speedway as your chance to win, because a lot of it's out of your control. You can do your best to put yourself in the position to win, but sometimes it doesn't bounce your way. But we know we've done it pretty much every race here in Atlanta to put ourselves in position to win, so I think we're going to do the same thing here tomorrow.
How different is that chess game in the draft here at Atlanta compared to Daytona or Talladega? Is it more mental, or does it get tougher considering the fact that the groove here is a lot narrower and there's a lot less space to be able to avoid if something goes wrong?
It's like speed chess, right? Talladega's chess, but you kind of see runs happening and you see runs forming, and the energy of the lanes coming and going a bit slower here. Your runs come and they close, and the holes open and they close probably double the speed as what they do at Daytona and Talladega. And I think a little bit of it, not a little bit, much more of it is handling here at Atlanta too. So if you have a good handle in a car, you can be aggressive, and where guys have to roll out, that their cars are more trimmed out, they're hanging on halfway through the run, and we've had some really good driving cars here. And you got to have some friends, because if you make that move to the bottom or the move for the lead, and and the guy behind you goes with the person you're trying to pass, and it's not going to work out. So all of those deposits in the bank you try to make buddies last week at Daytona, pushing the right guys at the right time. And I think it seems like guys are more apt to stay in my rear bumper these days now after all the success we've had at the Speedway. So hopefully that continues here tomorrow.
Let's go to Lee Spencer.
Lee Spencer, catchfence.com. I talked to Chase Briscoe yesterday, and he described the racing here as sketchy. And he said, especially during qualifying, maybe 12 guys will hold it wide open around the track. Are you one of those 12?
I was one of those 12, but I qualified 30th. So I don't, for whatever reason, it doesn't translate. Sometimes the ones that drive good are pretty slow. And I've also had bad driving ones here, too. So, I anticipate Fords being strong with as strong as they were in qualifying last week. I think Penske cars qualified 1, 2, 3 here the last race. So those guys are going to be tough to beat as always. They know how to make a race car go fast in a circle. That hasn't been our strong suit qualifying at any speedway. I don't think we've qualified with a 2 in front of it at all ever. So if we can do that, that would be a huge win and give us a little bit more pace to be offensive in the race. But you think it looks easy just going around there by yourself, but the guys have all the rounds taken out of them for qualifying, and you're sitting on essentially 3 bump stops with 60 pounds of air in the tires, and you are on the razor edge of grip by yourself. So they make it a little less sketchy to drive in the race, but it's still, you can put yourself in a bad spot pretty quick.
And do you kind of look at Spire in its current configuration as Spire 2.0 compared to where you were a year ago, given the investments from Gamebridge, given the alliances that y'all have made, the relationship with Trackhouse? Oh,
it's a completely different team. The transition to the shop, but just the shop's one thing, right? But the Gamebridge relationship, the new teammates, the added engineering, the more help from GM and Hendrick Engines and Hendrick Pit Crews, it's not even remotely the same team. Addition of Doug Ducart too is it'd be nice to come into a situation like this, but I was from the dry race board with the expo market to try to figure out how to get to this point. So rarely does it ever work out where a vision that Jeff and TJ or somebody like that has grandiose visions come to life, and it's pretty cool to be a part of that. And it's almost like we just started being a legitimate race team. The last 3 years have just been how can we just go and put a race car on the racetrack? So the intention going to the racetrack is a little bit different, and the expectations are different also.
Let's go to Kelly Crandall and then Dustin Long.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Corey, along those same lines, every year with this team, you've been more and more optimistic about what the goals and expectations can be. So I guess everything that you just said, is that why this year will be different? Is that why this year this organization can take that next step forward that you've been saying is coming?
We have been taking steps forward every year. We've had some good runs on occasion and not very frequent and not very consistent. But every measurable category statistically we're better last year from the year prior to that. And I don't anticipate this year being any different. We're going to take a step. Now, taking steps in this garage isn't 10 places. It isn't going to go from a 25th place team to a championship 4 team overnight. That's not how it works. If you could, a tangible step forward sometimes it might be 1 spot or 2 spots, because now you get, there's 24 factory teams essentially between Toyotas and Fords and Chevrolets, right? That are key partner teams. So for us to be in that 16th to 20th fringe playoff team on points, you're beating 8 teams that are fully funded, fully resourced, and we're still on the outside looking in when it comes to key partner information. So I feel like we've done a great job. So Ryan Sparks, especially overachieving for the resources that we've had, and we're going to continue to take. Maybe not be noticeable to many of you guys in here, but we are going to be better in the amount of top 5s we have, the amount of top 10s we have. There's not a measurable amount, but it's going to be more. And we just have lofty goals in terms of, I can lay it right out. So we have, for the bonus structure of guys in the shop, we separate the Daytona 500 as its own race because you race that one a bit different because you want to have a good points day and you want to cash the check. So we essentially start the season as a race team here at Atlanta, and we break the season up in 7 5-race mini seasons. And if you have a finish better than average finish over those 5 races, better than 20th, you acquire a certain amount of points. It's like 80 something. We set the benchmark of all these 19th and better metrics with laps led or laps completed, average finishing position. If you hit those markers for the 5-race mini season, then everybody in the shop gets a bonus. Even the truck guys get a bonus from if a cup team hits it. So we introduced that last year. It made the season much more palpable. You know, it gets long and grueling, but it allows you to kind of reset and attack each 5-race segment with intention and some attainable goals. And I think we hit it 2 out of the 5 last year, or 2 out of the 7 last year. We came short on 2 more. So if we can just hit all those little mini season benchmarks, I think that should put us up in the conversation as, you know, right on the fringe, maybe on the outside looking in of pointing our way into the playoffs. But obviously, you feel pretty good about it if you can get a notch in that win column to be in the playoffs.
I was going to bring that up, the postseason. Is it, I don't want to say playoffs or bust, but is it at least looked at now as realistic potentially for this team?
I think there's a couple of us internally, particularly Doug, myself, and Sparks, and Dickerson, of like, we feel as though if we execute, we can be in the playoffs. And that would be that's a reaching goal, but the only way you can score is if you have a goal. So the goals that we set out for a team 3 years ago, some of them were just let's just finish the race here, literally. So we've continued to move our benchmark and raise the bar for our goals, and I think the bar for this year for our team is the playoffs. And if we can get close to that, I think it would make a lot of guys, myself included, really happy. I think I've matured as a driver behind the wheel as well as off, and I think we are. It'll be a dogfight. It'll be an absolute dogfight. But I think if we execute for the next 20 weeks, 24 weeks, I think we could be in that conversation.
All right, Dustin Long.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Corey, there was a lot of talk last week about the fuel saving and how, you know, obviously at the end of the race you guys raced, but beforehand it's kind of building up to that, and raises a lot of questions. Potential maybe seeing some of that to some degree here. Obviously fuel saving is always big in any race. Are there any things that can be done to lessen the impact or the focus on fuel saving from a team competitor's perspective, whether it's change on pit road, change with the cars, or change elsewhere, or is this what everybody's got?
I don't know. You know, I think everybody seems to have a quick fix and, you know, not much thought behind it when it comes to the people that actually have to make the decisions. Those guys are the ones that are looking at the data, because sometimes you think it's going to be a fix, and then it creates 4 more problems, because there are world-class crew chiefs and engineers that will sit there and nitpick thousandths of an inch or thousandths of a mile in terms of mile per gallon to try to make the race as advantageous for themselves as possible. Do I like working to try to get the lead and then get yelled at by your crew chief because you're burning too much fuel? No, right? But what am I to do? Let just 6 or 7 guys go by me so I can ride at 60%? No. So I don't love that. That's how it's kind of worked, but I understand that that's kind of the game that's presented right now, with everybody's equal as it is, and you want to be on pit road or in your box the least amount of time possible to leapfrog the guys that you're in front of. I don't look at enough data to be able to make a fix, and I think anybody that sits here and says they do have a fix is probably not correct. But I do know that NASCAR doesn't like the fact that the entire field is running at 5150s, and the guy single car running would qualify 2 seconds faster than them. So I'm sure they're going to be looking at it.
Also, last week Ryan Blaney referenced the mouth guard that he wears and noted how his big impacts. He had a 55G impact, a 70G impact in his crashes at Daytona that were registered off of that. You've been very involved in that program for the last, I think, few years. Mm-hmm. How much has that program developed, and that mouth guard, and how does that help you as a competitor? Again, it's giving some additional information, as Blaney referenced.
Yeah, I'm glad I haven't been the crash test dummy for him too much like Ryan Blaney has lately. Appreciate him collecting the data for us. Yeah, so when they first came out, they've been working with Wake Forest. Those guys are top notch, and I think really and truly it just speaks to the investment that NASCAR is making with the health of drivers and seeing how much, especially when the next gen stuff and all the comments about how stiff and rigid the cars were, they wanted to actually see how much energy transferred to the drivers. And the first couple mouthpiece designs were pretty clunky, and they sat in the top of your mouth, and you sounded like you were talking with a mouth of peanut butter. But something that we came up with was, I wear like a night guard, like an Invisalign at night, and we actually put all the hardware on the outside of your teeth, which is something they hadn't done before, because normally for football players, you want everything inside and on the top of your mouth. So for how our races are, right, there's no contact to your helmet. We were able to put the hardware on the outside, and that got probably 15 or 18 guys more interested in wearing them because you can actually talk and it's comfortable. So we've continued to evolve that. They've got some really cool stuff from like the bus stop at Watkins Glen, certain areas of the racetracks where are really high peak G load, whether it's up and down or left to right. And then we've also worked really hard on that on the headrests around foam as well. So it's all correlating, and that's been a really big piece to help understand head knocks in our sport.
All right, we'll take our last question from Bob Pockris.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. You've come so close here. You said that one of the reasons why was that you hadn't been in that position before. So now that you've been in that position, are you confident in what you will do if put in that position again?
Well, I can assure you this, Bob, that I don't think any situation is the same, right? The characters and the players and the point of the racetrack with how much run you have will never be exactly the same. So I have relived that lap a couple years ago here at Atlanta when I tried to get to Chase's right rear, and in the moment I thought that it was kind of a racing thing. It was probably like a 1/2 step like over the line of what would not be considered dirty, but nonetheless he did what he had to do to win. And with the experience here at Speedways, there are things that I'm going to do different. Preferably be the one in front, right? It's much easier to defend than it is to be offensive on the last lap. So we're going to do all we can to put ourselves in that position here tomorrow.
All right, thanks for the time and best of luck this weekend.
Thanks, guys.